What up? Hello everybody and welcome back to another blind commentary of Samurai Jack Season 3 Episode 11 as per usual. Let's see outro. So, I was kind of negative on the previous episode, which admittedly might have been slightly unfair considering that it was still overall a rather good episode. But it just didn't compared to the one episode before that, it wasn't really a fair comparison, especially since I recorded those two rather back to back. You know, it wasn't really all that fair. I have really high hopes for the artistry of the show to continue and for them to continue experimenting with different styles of stories and especially art styles, because when the show tries for something experimental, something honestly quite beautiful, it often works out rather well. So hopefully we'll get more of that. Let's just start with show proper and see. Oh, and by the way, I do know that this is a two-part episode. However, I will be doing these in two parts, and you're gonna have to wait for wait 1 week for the next one because of time constraints. So, yeah. Sorry about that. Oh, is this actually going to be the origin story of Aku? That'd be neat. Obviously, this is the creation myth for the show, or this universe, like how there's everything came to be, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, that, in case it wasn't obvious, that signature way that that creature's skin is burned pretty clearly means that that is Aku, being chased by gods. Interesting. I do like how much they are or how they are representing Aku here as very much a cosmic being of eldritch powers and just an amorphous form, just being such an indistinguishable creature of just pure darkness like that. This is just I do like the representation of him here because it just makes him it reminds me of alien horror, and Aku really is a good representation of alien horror in this kind of, shall we say, alien form, or this amorphous form, just in general. So, yeah. So it's possible that in that form, Aku realized that he was no match against the gods, and he decided to basically send out an escape pod because he knew his destruction was imminent. And that kind of small shriveling piece that was left of him is basically all that remains of him. That's actually a pretty good. That's pretty cool. I was gonna lie. So this is surprisingly close to the way that we believe that things happen. This is, at the very least, an accurate representation of that, but I don't believe that meteorite was Aku. That would be kind of dumb. But this... So Aku kind of has now landed, maybe not now, perhaps in the future, maybe in a few hundred years, he'll land and watch humanity grow. That wouldn't explain why whether his strength is growing or not, but we'll see. This certainly might actually answer quite a lot of questions, though. How did that thing survive the meteor impact? I wanna know how. Oh well. So perhaps Aku was that meteorite after all. Did Aku just swallow up a bunch of people? It's all rather strange. The existence of those black tree-like things, and the fact that they are kind of following Calamity like that's certainly kind of fits well into a alien horror setup. Just just unexplainable events happening and just kind of heralding the upcoming of a destroyer. It's just, it is all nice and dandy. I kind of like that concept in theory. It's gonna be interesting to see what they do with it, though. But it could work. It's working as a good setup at the very. I mean, technically speaking, we know what happens because they are heralding the coming of Aku. So this is cool. I was thinking that that symbol looked rather familiar. This is actually, we're just getting the background story. That's pretty nice. It is rather interesting that they decided to retell this story in an actual actual episode format, because I liked how the background story was told to us, because it was simple and clean, and it was done in a very artistic form, and I don't think they can improve much on that, but it's not like expanding upon that is bad per se. That is pretty dark reminder that things can change rather quickly when they're dealing with an eldritch being. This really does give a good picture of Aku's power, because it's not like he's fighting against a being of any sort, any manner. He's fighting against a concept. He's fighting against an eldritch god. Something that has no form. It's just makes me wonder how Jack did so freaking well, but oh well. That's rather surprising that it actually worked. This is gonna be actually a pretty good explanation why an eldritch fucking god has been forced to take a mortal form. Well, a physical form. This is gonna be a pretty good backstory for that at the very least, considering how incomprehensible Aku's real form is. Incomprehensible. This explains Aku's form. That's pretty cool. I wasn't expecting this, but this kind of sealing ritual actually explains why Aku has to have taken such a form, and unexpected. That's pretty cool. Aku actually gained a form that actually did empower him, but considering that otherwise eventually he would have devoured the whole world, it's an acceptable loss, I suppose. Oh, new master! That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. I had no idea what to expect from this episode. I was definitely not expecting it to be literal birth of evil. The actual conception of Aku from... Well, actually we don't know the origin of Aku, where originally that space creature, that eldritch horror being in the space came from, that the gods had to destroy. But we don't know the origin of that, and that's the point. We don't need to know the origin of that. It is just an amorphous being that just always existed and kind of eventually came to be. Anyway, and this is a good origin story for Aku. More importantly, it's a good origin story why Aku was kind of sealed in a mortal or a physical form. It's a good story for that. It's an exceptional story for that. It's really good for that, and that's really well explained. Really well explained. It's explained here with a simple magical ritual, and that explains why Aku has to have a physical form and why he can't be destroyed. Whereas otherwise he would be just a pool of darkness that would have eventually spread across the whole Earth and devoured it. So, kind of a net positive, in my opinion. It's a good episode, but there's not much to say about it, because it's rather straightforward, in my opinion. It's visually really cool, and just the mere concept of just a being that just such a being that doesn't have a form and yet is threatening to devour everything that's really well done. It's just there's very little to go on about it. It's a very good concept for alien horror and just kind of accentuates the alien horror aspects that the show actually has had for quite a while. And it's done really well, and especially when Aku was in that form of just black sludge. That's really, really actually kind of reminds me of SCP. Just really pretty well about that. These are concepts that I like really quite a bit, so I'm quite glad that they were represented quite well here. So, yeah. That's about all. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope to see you in the future. Have a great day. Stay awesome. Gunmu out. Thank you very much for watching.